Let me unmute myself. That will help. Good afternoon. My name is Debbie Oberste, and I will be talking to you today about having older children in RightStart. So my question is, or I think you might have a question, I want to distinguish what do we mean by older children? So there's kind of two ways of looking at this. You may have an older student who's coming into RightStart that is not going to start in level B, which is our first grade, level A, level B. Maybe you have a fourth grader and they test into RightStart and they're right on target and they're going to go into the fifth grade. That's one type of older child that comes into RightStart. There is another older child, and this is the older child who is much older, but when they test in, you actually start them at a much lower level. And that's going to be pretty much where I'm going to put a lot of my focus, just because I've had experience with both. So a little bit of my story is when I was homeschooling, my own children are adults now, but when we were homeschooling and I was doing math with them, we really were struggling. And I tried a variety of curriculum until I found RightStart. And I had my children test in. At the time, there was the three of them was my focus. I have 6 children. Oldest one was at school. So the 3 tested, and I had a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 9-year-old test into level E. So for my 9-year-old, that's kind of right on target. But for my 13-year-old who was in 7th grade, I was like, wow, he tested into 4th grade. And I really struggled with that. And I remember talking to someone who gave me some really good advice, and I'm going to share it with y'all. You know, when you're building a house, are you going to put the roof on before you get the walls done? No. Do you want to put your walls up before your foundation is set and firm? No. So when we come to math, we need to be more concerned with where are they at in their understanding versus where are they at in their grade level. My second experience with this is I am now helping my daughter teach my grandchildren. And so when my granddaughter was in the 4th grade, she finished school. They started a homeschooler. She's going into the 5th grade. I had her do the placement test because I was like, hey, I know a math curriculum we can use and I'll help you teach it. So she tested, I watched her, and I was like, no, we got to start at level B. But does that mean that all older children need to come in and start at level B? The ones that are more of the struggling type of children? No. So I wanted to talk about where do you start? Because there's a lot of different levels. We start at level A, which is kindergarten. We go up through level H, which is our F, G, and H are our pre-algebra classes. Then they're ready to go into algebra. I want to take you to, let me see if I can do this, our website. Yay. So on our website, we have a couple places where you could take the placement test. You want your child to take the placement test. If you click on this one up here, this is more asking you the questions and you're answering it. My recommendation would be come to resources, come down to where it says take the placement test. Scroll down here where it says download the placement test. And then if you can, print it off and then give this paper to your child and let them work on the right side of the paper. And I highly encourage you to watch them as they're doing this, mainly because it's kind of good to see, and sometimes it's a little painful to see how they answer these questions. Some children, no big deal. They answer it. They could do it mentally. Some may even use their fingers, but they're very adept at using their fingers. They can get the answer and get it done. My granddaughter, even using her fingers, struggled with answering what is 9 plus 6 and what is not 7 plus 5. And I knew right away that her struggle right then and there, I just couldn't do it to her to put her in a higher level. I needed to make sure that she understood that foundation of number sense and addition and subtraction. Each child is going to be a little different. So I recommend print it out, let them work through it and kind of look. So maybe they fill out all of this on the right. Maybe they had a struggle with the subtraction, the 4-digit subtraction. They keep going, and maybe this is where they land. Let's say between 12 and 13. If you notice, we're looking at between level D and level E. So then it's like, okay, what level do we go into? So what I would recommend is we would go back to, give me a second, everything is a little bit crowded on here. I'm going to go back to our resources. You can look at sample lessons. We scroll down. I'm going to look at level D. Let's look at the objectives. Just a second. I'm actually going to, I had the chat and participants up, but I'm closing that down so I can see this easier. So you can come over here and look at your objectives, go down and look and see, compared to what your children know, what they don't know. Let's say you can answer, yes, 80% of this, 85% you get right. I would move on to the next level. If not, stay at level D. What about the 4-digit subtraction? Well, look, in subtraction, guess what we're going to work on all year long? 4-digit subtraction. So they're going to get the practice in that one skill. And when you're looking at this, anything that's dark, this means we're not going to do it at that time. So for example, those multiplication facts to 10 times 10, that's really going to be our focus at the end of our lessons. So I found this very helpful to determine, to know which place, which level to put my child. However, if you still struggle, you're unsure, you can always contact RightStart, and I have information for that at the end of the class or this presentation. So let me go back to our PowerPoint. Oh, one of the things I meant to share is when you start a level, you can put, you go through the review lessons. So I have my book out. Here's level D. So at the beginning of level D, and you can see this on our website too. I meant to go to that when I was there, but I'm just going to do this. So we have review lessons. In level D, we have 11 review lessons. So if you're bringing in an older child who's never done RightStart before, you want to make sure that you have them do these review lessons. And you may need to take some time over these review lessons. So for example, lesson 2 is all about addition strategies. Now we have the 10 near 10 strategy, the 1 and 2 strategy, the doubles and near doubles strategy, the 2-5 strategy, as well as the make 10 strategy. That's a lot of strategies in one lesson. Some of your children who are doing well with math, they're enjoying math, they get it. This is going to be review for them. And then they're going to see how RightStart presents it. For those of you like myself who have older children who struggle with math, this might be a little overwhelming to do all in one lesson. It is okay. Actually, I highly encourage to break it up into shorter lessons. Maybe you tackle one strategy each day, because the goal is you want the children to enjoy math. It's not, let's check the box off and get this lesson done and move on. You don't want to do that with your children. I tried that. It didn't work very well. And I've learned from that. My grandchildren are really benefiting now from what I learned. So you're getting in, you start to use the levels. And I thought this quote from Albert Einstein fit perfectly, because education is not learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. So one of the things I learned with my children is RightStart. There's some learning curves when you start using RightStart with an older child, or even if you come in brand new, especially if you've learned math more of the traditional way. And it's okay, because guess what? You're going to learn right along with your children. I had so many aha moments, but what I found is that because I was understanding math, I was able to help them more when they were struggling, because then I got it. I understood it better. I could explain it better. One of the things that my older kids, when they came into RightStart, they would whine to me a little bit, and they're like, "Mom, why do we have to think? Why can't you just tell us what the answer is?" And I kind of laughed, but it was one of those moments for me when I realized, wow, apparently the math I had been using was basically just telling them what to do, and then they went to do it. They weren't required to have to think. And what I really appreciate with RightStart is that it really does teach you and teach your child to think mathematically, like what I call a math person. But coming in with an older child, just know that some of them might have some habits that they've developed. And so some of those habits are going to be a little bit harder to break, but you can do that. Now, if you have a child who's really struggling, let's say you come into level D, they're struggling with those review lessons. You might want to consider pulling them back and maybe going through the RightStart tutoring number sense. These tutoring kits are also for older children who might be using another program. Maybe you're okay with the program they're using, but you want them to learn maybe how to use the abacus or how to use some of the different strategies, play the games. These tutoring books are excellent because there's about 50 lessons. They are all accompanied by a game. So I know some people are a little leery about playing games, and some people will say their children don't like playing games, but I will tell you from experience, these games are super important. There's so much you can learn watching your children play these games. One, you can see if they're applying what strategy they're using. Two, it really helped to solidify for me that they're really starting to understand. And also, I have found that children could do really well on a worksheet and really struggle playing a game. And then sometimes it's vice versa. Maybe they do really well playing a game and they don't do as well on a worksheet. So it gives you a balance between the two. So the question is, you have an older child who's coming in. Let's say my son, he was 7th grade. My granddaughter, 7th grade. Both of them are in level E. Well, we go through H. That's F, G, H. That's 3 more levels. 7th grade means they're not going to be starting algebra till probably 10th grade. Guess what? I'm going to let you know it is okay. However, you also need to take into consideration what the long-term goals are. And we'll talk about that in just a second, but you can work through the summer to try to get these levels in. If you want to get through H, you could with an older child. You could do level F and G, and then they can go into algebra. And then depending on your child, you could possibly, if they're older, 13, 14, and they do get through level F, you could possibly then move into algebra. You might want to, I would recommend Videotext has module A. It's like 28 lessons of pre-algebra. You might want to have them go through that first. Just know that if they're going from F into an algebra program, there's going to be some areas that they're not going to know as well. So be thoughtful about what curriculum you'll put them into algebra. You don't want to be putting them into some advanced algebra class. Okay, so kind of take that into consideration. So talking about goals, what is your goal? What is your state's requirements? What is your child's goal? I would like to encourage you. You may have a goal for your child. Look at what their goal is and then look at where they're at. My oldest son is, I would call him on a genius level, but he struggled in math. I'm pretty sure if he was formally tested, he would have been tested with a math learning disability. He's 31 now. He's an electrician, but it took him all of his high school years to get through Algebra 1 and a portion of geometry. If I would have pushed him to try to get him to get through it faster, it would have been miserable for both of us. I had to go at his pace. As he got older and he matured more, he's been doing all his learning, all his book work, everything, even now to be an electrician, he's doing that all on his own. So I believe that there was a good foundation set. He went forward with it. My granddaughter, on the other hand, she's 7th grade in level E. Our goal, my goal hopefully, is that we do F in 8th, F in 8th grade and G in 9th grade, and then she'll start into algebra. So look at your state's requirements. See, could pre-algebra be part of their high school credits? I don't know. It depends on where you're at. In Texas, where I live, we have a little bit of freedom that we can do their curriculum, but also take into consideration what they want to do when they finish high school. One other thing I would throw in here, maybe do a super senior year. I did that with my youngest son. So we took an extra year because I felt that he needed a little bit more time. He was formally diagnosed with learning challenges, and it was really beneficial for all of us for him to take that super senior year. And then he only focused on specific classes where we felt that he needed a little bit more work on. So this quote I like, work is either fun or drudgery. It depends on your attitude. I like fun. Let's replace work. Math is either fun or drudgery. Teaching math is either fun or drudgery. Housework is either fun or drudgery. I might want to change that word fun to, it could be either enjoyable or drudgery. Not everything is going to be fun, but we can let it be a little bit more enjoyable. And a lot of that has to do with your attitude when you're working with your children. So like with my granddaughter, she struggled a little bit with some of, coming in, especially using the abacus. And I had her use this little abacus, the junior abacus. So it looks different than the one her brothers are using. And she's a finger counter. I am a finger counter. And so I kind of try to relate to her, and I want to encourage her. So if she's kind of a little grumpy or whatever, I try to make it lighthearted, make it a little bit fun. If she's wanting to use her fingers, I'm like, hey, I see that. You don't think I don't see that? I'm a finger counter. I see all the different ways that you could try to use your fingers and try to act like you're not using your fingers. Use the abacus. And if they don't want to use the abacus at first, I'll take it out and I start to model it for them. And then I'll ask them to do the next problem using the abacus. And usually they do pretty well with that. And I encourage them to. It's just a tool. They're not going to use this forever, but it is so helpful for children who struggle with number sense or using their fingers to count. I will tell you, I get stressed. I resort to my fingers. I have to stop and think, oh, wait a minute. I know strategies. Your children are no different. So just encourage them. Your attitude makes a huge, huge difference. And your kids are going to get frustrated, and that's okay. But if they get to that meltdown stage and there's crying and tears, stop. And that meltdown could be you too, not just them. Sometimes we have those days. That's where I have to stop. We back away. We either go to play a game or I send them off to play a game. And then we come back refreshed the next day to continue on wherever it was we left off. So I end with this. The goal of RightStart is we want to help children and adults understand, apply, and enjoy mathematics. Like I told my kids, I don't expect you to love math. That's not my goal. My goal is I want you to understand it. I want you to be able to apply it. And hopefully through that, you're going to enjoy it. What I have found is when children and adults learn to understand math, they learn to apply the math, they do develop a love of math. But I don't start off as that being our goal. We want you to understand it. We want you to apply it. We want you to enjoy it. If you need help, if you have questions, our children are so unique. Call us. You could call us on the phone during business hours, Central Time, or you can email us at info@rightstartmath.com, and we will get back with you. We will encourage you. We will give you ideas, because it's important for your children to be able to feel successful in math. And RightStart does an excellent job with having older children get in there and be able to accomplish and come out of it with more understanding in what they're learning. So I am done with my presentation, but we do have time for questions.
We have a question here from Victoria. What is recommended after level H?
We have a couple different programs we recommend. So we do have it on our website, but some of the things we recommend is video text. We recommend Jacobs. We recommend Mr. D's Math. That's an online class. So if your children would, do better with an online class, that's an excellent resource. Art of Problem Solving is also recommended. Now, Art of Problem Solving is one of those that's really geared for kids who really just eat up math and they need it to be challenging. So take that into consideration.
Okay, another question is there a common challenge that middle school kids face in level G and H? Are any concepts that are especially hard for most kids?
I teach the level G class online, and the biggest thing I see with these kids is when they don't read their lessons correctly or read their directions correctly. If they are reading it, and even if they have to highlight stuff or circle stuff or whatever, that's where I've found the biggest issue with the middle school kids is just in reading their work. What I did with my boys, because my youngest son, like I said, also has learning challenges. When he got up to level G, he wanted to work independently. I would let him. But if he messed up on his worksheet, I would then have him read the lesson out loud to me. And usually in reading, because he has dyslexia, in reading that lesson out loud to me, he would be like, oh, I missed that part. And usually it was always the key to being able to do the lesson.
Another question here is what's the benefit of taking G and H as opposed to skipping to pre-algebra or algebra?
Well, G and H is pre-algebra. Some people, probably the biggest thing I would say here is there is drawing in G and H. Some children may struggle greatly with that if they have any kind of learning challenges. Now, there are going to be some kids who just don't like to draw, but I will tell you, in going through G and H and teaching G and H, not only to 5 of my children, but also online, there's a real benefit to working through G and H. And that is because we're taking our pre-algebra concepts and we're teaching them through a geometric approach. So they're getting a lot of geometry, not high school level geometry, but the foundation is getting set so well that I have found that when my kids did get into algebra and into geometry, there was a really smooth transition. And especially in geometry, I am someone who struggles with spatial, reasoning, sorry about that. So I have a hard time seeing things that are drawn and visualizing things. So I have found it beneficial in working through level G and H, because as teachers, we do the same thing, that it really helps you to develop that, the spatial reasoning because it's a process, it builds up. So, and plus it just gets them to think. It's not telling them, they're discovering concepts. They discover the Pythagorean theorem. They discover the formula for a circle. Why is it that way? So it's definitely very beneficial if you can do it.
Sandy says, my 12-year-old son takes the level G online class and he loves it. I am not involved in any other way, in any way other than occasionally playing the card games with him. He is very motivated to take responsibility for his learning. It makes my job as a homeschool mom very easy.
Oh,
And
great.
yes.
I love to hear that. I really do. And I love that you're playing games with him. That is so important, because even in our G and H classes, we do have games to just help reinforce those facts that the children have been learning up until now. It just keeps it fresh.
Sarah's asking, what's the parent commitment level in levels F, G, and H? So for example, how long does it take the parent to teach the lessons those years?
So I'm excited to get to try to do, to teach level F. When my kids were in RightStart, they were in the first edition. So E was it. And then they went into like what we call now G and H. So from what I've heard, that it is less teacher time to teach F to your child. But then again, take into consideration your child. If you have a child who has some learning challenges, it might take a little bit longer. But, you know, in comparison to the earlier levels, especially B and C, when you're really trying to establish these foundations and they're grasping those addition and subtraction, it kind of builds on each other. And as that thinking improves, it becomes less of your time in F. G and H is written to the child to be done independently. So they are responsible. They read their lesson, they do their homework. There's a solutions manual that you can use to go over their work. It gives a lot of great information to the parent. Especially if you're not doing the lessons with them, to questions to ask or areas where they may have, you know, a problem, it gives you some ideas. So again, if you have a child like mine, my youngest son has trouble with his reading. So he would do the lesson, then he might come back and read it to me, but we're looking at maybe 5 to 10 minutes of him coming back to read to me. So G and H is definitely pretty hands off for the parent, other than to correct their work. And one other thing is we recommend that the kids call into RightStart if they have questions about in G and H. And that's a great skill for them to learn, is to call in and ask for help.
Sandy G is asking, with a student who's 13 or older, would you ever recommend doing 2 lessons a day?
Oh, I would recommend it if they can do 2 lessons a day. I do that sometimes with my grandchildren. So my granddaughter, some of the lessons are she gets them. And so if she gets them, I'll try to get in 2 or 3 lessons with her. Well, I haven't gone to 3. I shouldn't say 3, but I would like to sometimes. But I definitely will get into. There's other times I might have to take 2 days to do a lesson. So let your child be your guide on that. Don't force them to do 2 lessons if they can't handle doing 2 lessons at a time.
Do we have any other questions from anyone?
I see one on here. Someone's asking about the online class. So I think Victoria, you're asking what the online class is. So RightStart provides an online class. It starts after Labor Day. It continues until Memorial Day. Get my holidays right. And they meet twice a week. We have classes that meet on Monday and Wednesday, and there's classes that meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm one of the teachers for the level G class. We have a couple other teachers who teach the H class, or they teach the Tuesday, Thursday class. And so the students, one of the benefits to me of having them in a class like this is that they get to see how other kids see the problems, how other kids answer. So I have found it really interesting for myself, even as a teacher. I have learned some stuff from some of the kids because they come about it in a way that I didn't even think about. And so that's a real benefit to the online classes, but it also helps to keep children on track and keep them at a certain pace so that they can get it completed. And I find that a lot of students are more motivated to do their work, and they turn in their work to me. I don't give them an actual grade, but I will give them points for turning their work in. And so it's interesting. Like today I have 15 kids, and every single child but one turned in their work. That's a big deal. So, and they do, and then a lot of times, they're working on their own.
We have a question here regarding, it looks like it says, sorry, I can't get my words out. Is trigonometry a high school topic, or is that covered in G&H? Go ahead,
I'm
Debbie.
sorry. It is a high school topic. However, we do we do a little bit of trigonometry in level H, which is really cool because I did not do trigonometry in high school. And so it was really neat to see that even at this level, they know enough that they can do some really basic trigonometry. And I think that's encouraging.
Well, I was going to add to it real quick. I'm Kathleen, by the way. I was going to add to it real quick because I'm the assistant in the H class. And today we just did trigonometry, and it was absolutely fascinating to watch these kids go, oh, that's what that is. And just to watch them explore with it. So today we went through what trigonometry is, and then their assignment for next Monday, because today's Wednesday, for next Monday is they're going to start solving problems using trigonometry. And it's as somebody who learned trigonometry in college, I thought they just put that together to torture me. They did a dandy job. And when I saw how it was taught in H, I'm like, that's what it is. Oh, I get it. So yes, that's where it is. So I just kind of wanted to add into that.
And it's just neat that they're learning that foundation. So then when they get into the high school level math, they've already got something to connect it to. So it's not like totally new and, oh, I've never done this before.
Larita, if I pronounce your name right, says, are there classes for other levels?
No, not through RightStart. I do know that there are some tutors who work with students using RightStart. And I believe, Kathleen, they can find that information, or they could call us, but we have a place on our website for tutors also.
Yes, if you hit on the homepage, if you hit the tutoring button, kind of down towards the bottom, there's a link for a list of tutors. So yes, you can possibly look there. Another question we have here is, when does the online class registration for G&H open up for the next school year? I don't know if you know the answer to that, Debbie, but the answer is probably somewhere around March. We'll open it back up. If you are interested, you want it, you can always call us and say, okay, put me down. We'll make sure you get on the list. We've never had a problem where we've had to turn people away. But we have had times where the classes are getting pretty full. We do limit the classes for G&H at no more than 15 students. So we try to watch that. So if you're adamant you want to be in on it, again, you can even call us now and we can put your name in and go from there. Victoria asked a question about rewatching part of the placement test. Will this video be available somewhere? Yes, Kelsey will be sending a link to everybody, so you will be able to access this later. You can always call our office also and discuss your child and your particular situation. Any other questions?
And feel free if you want to, speak it on video. Like you don't have to show yourself. I mean, unmute yourself, not show on video. You can unmute yourself and ask if you don't want to type it in. All right. I think we're done. It was a pleasure to be able to talk with y'all today about this. I have had a lot of experience with having older children in RightStart. Feel free to contact RightStart with any additional questions you may have. Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.